Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth.
Hi, I'm Mary, and welcome back to another episode of Oxford from the Inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth. Today we're here with Leeya and Ellie, who are going to be talking about their journey of applying to PPE Oxford. So would you guys like to introduce yourselves? Starting with Leeya?
I'm Leeya. I am just about to start my final year of PPE at Somerville College. Um, that's it.
And Ellie?
I'm Ellie. I'm also about to start my third year at PPE at Somerville College. So Leah and I in the same year.
The dream team. Part of the dream team. So I guess obvious initial question is why PPE?
Okay, so for me, I think it was just that, like the fact that it's three subjects. I knew first of all I was just very indecisive, and I feel like because PP is sort of a mixture between humanities and like politics and economics, there's social science and there's like maths involved. It just saved me having to make a decision, but also like just in general at school, I found like I was most interested in like so I hadn't done politics or economics before, but like I knew I liked maths and like I was really interested in history, and like I just like loved philosophy in my spare time, which it sounds really sad, but I just love philosophy. So but I didn't know if I like want to do it at degree level like completely, so PPE was like the perfect little combo of like everything I like enjoyed at school.
Well, I think for me, I initially started writing a psychology personal statement because I was like, oh, I'm really interested in people. I'm really interested in why people make decisions and why we have kind of inequality and stuff like that. And I was writing a psychology personal statement. And as I was writing, I was like, this is not a psychology personal statement. This is a politics personal statement. And so I'd never done any of the three before at school. But I just kind of started like reading things like about things that made me angry or like upset, and kind of finding that actually like the PP degree enables you to kind of, I felt like, understand the whole world, because like you can understand like kind of your philosophical like moral kind of considerations, also politics that's happening right now, but also from an economic standpoint, because so many people kind of talk about the free market and stuff like that. It kind of, I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to understand politics, I need to understand economics as well.
Yeah, and it is quite a broad degree, and like you said, there are like three main subjects within one degree. So I guess when writing a personal statement, how do you balance those three? I'm sure this is a question people ask all the time because it must be quite tricky, but how did you guys do it? Maybe we start with Ellie this time.
So I think I was kind of unusual in that I didn't give equal weighting to all three. I probably knew more applying about politics and philosophy. And so I kind of started from a standpoint of like what I was studying history at the moment. So I was doing kind of communist Russia and China. And so I kind of started from there and went, okay, well, this is what I know from my own life. Maybe I'll read this. And I kind of almost like went through like this kind of narrative, my personal statement. And I briefly mentioned economics, but it definitely wasn't equal. Yeah.
Okay, so you sort of tailored it more towards your interests, and we're just like, if Oxford don't like it, they don't like it.
Yeah, I think I definitely was aware that I needed to mention all three at points, but I kind of went from a place of being like, okay, what am I interested in? Then what can I read, and what out of what I've read kind of doesn't fit with what I know or doesn't fit with what I believe, and then kind of took it from there, like maybe, and kind of like built up a web of reading from there.
Okay, yeah, no, I like that. I think that's good. And like you said, it is like a narrative. It isn't just listing loads and loads of things off, but sort of linking things and like showing you've engaged with it. So yeah, I think that's really, really important. And what about you, Leah?
For me, well, I was told like sort of similar, because it's hard to do to like mention all three, but like I was told I should just do like a paragraph on each of the subjects, and then try and like link them together. So I remember I started with like economics and like but then what I really liked in economics is like the idea of like equality and things like that. So that sort of like feeds into philosophy and politics anyway. And so mine was just essentially like based off what I was interested in, like what my main interests were in each of those three subjects, and like a paragraph on each of those, trying to link to the other two as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that you do have to form your own opinions, and there is a lot of opinions within politics and I guess within economics and obviously philosophy too. So how much of your personal statement was fact and how much of it was drawing your own opinions from different facts and different theories?
So I went in, I think it was September of my year 13. I went on the Oxford Pathways Taster Day, which is kind of a taster and kind of interview prep day for state school students, which I'm not sure if they're running this year because of coronavirus, but normally they do. And so I went on that, and they said to us like a really good piece of advice, which was go through your personal statement, one of your drafts, with 2 color pens, and with 1 color highlight any evidence. So anything you've read, anything you've done, anything you're kind of saying, oh, I did this. And then with another color, highlight what you have thought about it, or what you've learned, or what you kind of have to say. And they said every time you say, you give a piece of evidence, you then need to expand on that and be like, okay, so I read Political Philosophy by Adam Swift, and I was really interested in the liberty section, but I was kind of confused by the fact that, etc. They were like, don't just say you've done something, tell us what you thought about it, why you liked it, why you didn't. And I thought that was really good advice, and kind of that was what I did to structure my statement, basically.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. Yeah, it's all about engaging with the text and not just, listing it. What about you, Leah?
Yeah, mine was very like similar to Ellie. Like, don't just like, I was just told, don't just list out all the books you've read. Like, say what you've gained from it, or how like maybe a book maybe changed your opinion that you had before. So like I remember I said that I like talked about how I was like interested in free will and like determinism and things like that. And so I was like, oh well, reading this book made me realize that like perhaps I was like wrong. I don't know, like just sort of tell us kind of story about your engagement with that like specific topic. Or like I think they want you to have an opinion on a book. They like, it's easy enough to just be like, oh, I read this book, but they want you to be like, well, I didn't quite understand that. Like I don't think they like, there's nothing wrong with saying I didn't quite understand this bit, but it really interested me, or like this bit in particular made me realize that one of the, like, my assumptions was just wrong, or something like that. Just to show that you're like not just reading for the sake of it, but like you're actually taking it in, and just like I guess that just shows you're interested in what you're reading, and you're not just reading for the just to put it in your personal statement.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like you said, you were really interested in reading about free will and determinism. How much or how important do you think it is to consider both sides, or like the many sides of an argument in a personal statement? Is it fine to just look at one argument and say how that affected you, or do you reckon you need to look at the whole picture?
I'd say because some of those like topics are so like, especially in PPE, I feel like so many are so debatable, and there's so many things you can like include, so many different arguments. I think in my personal statement I sort of gave my opinion, and I was like, well, this is the case, and then I mainly explained why I had the feeling I had. And I just thought, like, if I put a statement in there that they don't agree with, like say I say, oh, I think we don't have free will, and they actually like give me an argument, if it comes to interview, then like I'm prepared to sort of give my opinion, and like the more all the other like information I may have on that, rather than like squeezing into a personal statement, because you can't, it's not an essay, like you can't just like address like all the different sides of an argument, especially for something like a massive topic like free will, or whatever topic you're like interested in.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it is like, I think, is it 4,000 words or 4,000 characters?
Or
It's not a
characters.
lot.
Yeah.
4,000 characters, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
literally not a lot to write at all. Yeah. Do you have any advice for being able to get as much information as you can into such a small amount of characters?
I found this really hard. Like
Yeah.
I think I had 18 drafts in which I kind of started off at like 3,000 words, and I always write ridiculously long essays as well. So like each time it was like brutally cutting. Like, what do you actually need? What is just fluff? At what point, like, what have you just? Because I feel like, especially when you first write it in your first drafts, because it's so important to just get stuff out, get on the page, so you don't just have this stressful blank document staring at you. like you suddenly kind of 10 drafts down the line, you're like, oh, I have loads of rubbish. So you kind of have to be quite brutal and be like, is this helping? Is this not?
Yeah, I would say similar, like maybe just choose 2 main topics or 2 main like interests per paragraph or something like that, and then just make sure everything's linked to that or like follows on from that, instead of just, like Ellie said, I think the first draft, it's probably easiest to just list everything and then see if you can find links between everything you've read or like all your interests, so it like flows a bit better. But like it is just really hard, it's quite short when it comes down to it, I think.
I really
Yeah.
agree with that. And I think if you're really struggling to start, kind of starting by just making a bullet point list of just things you're interested in, or things that kind of make you angry or make you confused or upset or excited, is such a like good place to start, because you'll probably go back through it and 80% of it you won't use, but there might be kind of one gem that you're like, oh, actually that does make sense, and I can link that with that time I volunteered at my primary school or stuff like that. And so like that's a really nice place to kind of start.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That was exactly the same for me. I just blurted every single thing that I could have talked about in my personal statement, and from there looked at things that were very relevant, stuff I could link together. And yeah, I think that's a really, really good point to make. And did you find there was a theme in things you were removing from your personal statement? So like, if you understand, I don't know how to rephrase it, but if it was maybe adding in
Well,
those extra opinions and things, what was it that got taken
I
away?
think like one of my problems was like I would sometimes just write a sentence just to be like, oh, I read this and I found it interesting, but then I just leave it there. It would just be like one sentence like, oh, I like this book, because like, I don't know, maybe I was just like trying to brag or something. In my head I was like, oh, I've read this book, I want to like talk about it, I want to show that I've read the book. But then I realized, it wasn't that relevant to everything else I was talking about. I didn't have much space to like develop it. So I'd say there's no point like just throwing in something that you're not going to like, I don't know, sort of move,
Flesh
I don't
out.
know, just develop, yeah, flesh out, there we go.
Because also I
I think
think that will be the thing that in the interview they will call you up on. If you've got like that one book that you just name dropped and it wasn't really relevant and you didn't really talk about, they'll go, oh, so why did you think that linked? Or like, what did you find interesting about
yeah
that? You go, oh my god, no, why'd I do that?
yeah, I feel like a big thing was like, don't feel like you have to like really show off, because I feel like, because I remember when I was applying, I was like, oh, it's Oxford, like, oh, I've got to like really sound so impressive and I've read like 1 billion books or something. But I don't think that matters. I think they'd rather you mentioned like 3 texts or something, or 4 of, I don't know, a small number of books, and then actually like showed that what you got from it, like how much you enjoyed, whether you liked it, whether you disliked it, like your opinion and actually how you feel, because that's going to like reveal more about you than, oh, I read this book and I liked this part, like, I don't know, and then that's it.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a really, really good point. And I guess from there, do you remember how many books you did write about in your personal statement? Because I remember I only wrote about one, but obviously that could be quite different for your type of subject.
I think I only talked about 2 because they were kind of, it was Rawls's like principle of equality of opportunity, and his main critic is this guy called Nozick. And so I like read both of their theories, and then from that related it to some kind of volunteering I'd done, canvassing, and then kind of working at my local youth theatre group. And so I kind of felt like it was better to just talk about kind of 2 things but in detail, rather than kind of drop everything in.
Wow, so you really did merge your extracurriculars really well with your like super curriculars. That's very impressive, because a lot of the time like people find it very hard to add in their extracurriculars, or just add it in really awkwardly at the end and it's just like shoved at the bottom. But that's really interesting.
I think also for me, like theatre and drama is such a like important part of my life and so important to me that I didn't just want to have it as kind of 2 lines right at the bottom. So I was kind of thinking, okay, how can I make this relevant? And I think with politics, like it's so easy to make anything you've done relevant. Like you don't have to have done work experience in a bank or anything like that, because so much of just like life is politics if you actually kind of think about it.
Do you mind telling us the link you made between your extracurriculars and your supercurriculars, because I think that could be really interesting. So I can't even imagine how you'd like link drama to that.
So I basically worked as like a teaching assistant in a like local theatre group in Hackney, and I kind of talked about how working there I saw like a big disparity in educational opportunities between kids from high and low income households, and actually how that, like, just seeing that in my daily life made me really angry. And then I linked that with how actually kind of I was studying communism and history, but like a lot of that stuff you kind of see it kind of failed really badly and lots of people killed, and I mean that's a really simple way of putting it, but I kind of was like, okay, is true equality achievable, is it beneficial, and from there kind of linked it in, if that makes sense.
That is very impressive, and it does show that you can, like you said, you don't have to have read loads and loads of books and done this, that, and the other, had loads of work experience, because you can just link it to everyday life. Because at the end of the day, politics, philosophy, and economics are our everyday lives. So yeah, that's very true. And Leah, how many books did you write about?
So I think I had about 4, because so it's more than Ellie, but like I did okay, sorry. I did 4, and then I did like 1 book per paragraph basically, and then I just mentioned links, because like I said, I did each a paragraph on each subject. So I think it just depends. Like I don't think there's like a set number of, I wouldn't be like, oh, you must include like 2 books, you must include 4 books in your personal statement. I think it whatever fits in with what you want to say, rather than just like listing books for the sake of it, I'd say.
Are you able to give a brief overview of like how you linked the books into each paragraph, if you?
Yeah, so I first talked about so I read a book called like Why Equality is Better for Everyone, and that was sort of a lot of data and statistics on like based on different countries, and like how equality is linked to like less crime and better education and just all these factors. So then I talked about like reasons for why don't people, like I didn't talk about communism, but sort of just like why is it not just an agreed upon thing that everyone should have the same amount of everything. So I also talked about like things like, because it sounds hard to link, but like I linked it to like history, and just that like say colonialism and things like that leads to like an unequal distribution of resources between countries as it is today, and so it's like it's harder to correct. And also just I also talked about corruption and how that also feeds into like some countries like reluctance to like help other countries that need more money, like excuses. I don't know, I'm not explaining this well, but basically just like little bits that I found interesting. Like I find corruption interesting, I find equality interesting, and just why all these things together, just like it seems like it should be obvious that like a more equal world is better, but all these little things like sort of make it less easy. And then stuff like I linked like philosophy and economics together, because like free will, so I talked about that. But then there was also this book called Predictably Irrational, which is about behavior economics. So that just basically was things like how just like prices and things like that just cause people to behave irrationally. It's called Predictably Irrational, and that just like I fed that into how like, oh, we're not really in control of our own decisions. You know, we see something that's free, we don't want it, but for some reason, because it's free, we want to buy it. Like that sort of links. I feel like it's with PPE, there's like so many, because they're politics, economics, philosophy are such big subjects that you can find a link with like everything. I feel like, I don't know, I guess it depends, but for me, I found it like not that hard to find links, just because like everything, like Ellie said, to understand politics you have to understand economics, and like I feel like philosophy has like implications for what, like, I don't know, what laws you're going to have in a country, what policies, and how you're going to like redistribute goods in your country. I don't know, so like for me it just feels like they all just feed into each other quite nicely.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting to know, because obviously people do panic that like it is 3 subjects and that you need to 3, but if it is like they do link, and I guess it is important to find those links in the business statement to make it easier.
Yeah, And I don't think you can cover all of it. So like, I don't think you literally cannot mention everything. So you should just choose like 1 or 2 links or something that particularly interests you.
And I think tutors are aware of that as well. They're not expecting you to have covered like the entire politics, philosophy, economics, everything there is to talk about in the world, because it's not possible in 5,000 characters. They're just kind of thinking, oh, okay, I like those links you've made, or oh, that's an interesting thought you've had. So yeah, I wouldn't worry much about getting everything in.
And like you've just shown then, like especially Leah with your example of like the book you read, I think it was for your politics section, and like how you discuss so much in just one paragraph, and it is just about being succinct and being able to make those arguments in as little words as you can, and making those links. And I think that's really important. And I think you guys have really like highlighted that you don't need to have read millions and millions of books. And I think that's so important, because I think people think you have to have done millions of different things to be impressive on your personal statement. But like you guys have highlighted, it's about what you do with what you've read, or how you analyze and how you engage with it, which is really important. And I guess like we've talked about books, but there's so many other different things that you can do. So did you do any other super curriculars? Or if you didn't, have you got any recommendations for what other students can do if they don't want to sit there with a book? Because I know that's not always the most fun thing to do.
I would say I didn't do this that much, but like I gave it a go, is that LSE has like really good online lectures for economics and politics. So if you don't enjoy reading and you just rather listen to a lecture, some of those are really interesting. Like I haven't read many, but I read one like it was just not read one. I watched one about like the abstraction of money, which is basically like people aren't handling cash so much. So they're using credit cards, and then using things like credit cards, you tend to spend more because you can't see like physically how much money you're spending. So it's not like they're not all completely linked, but just they're on really like niche, like interesting topics. So I would actually really recommend those. And also because it's from the LSE, like they are really good quality, and like they have really impressive speakers as well.
Yeah, I really like that. That's really good advice, especially like you said, like people who don't like to sit there with a book. There's so many other things to do. Yeah. What about you, Ellie? Have you got any other ideas?
So I think if you're really into politics, like getting involved with your local kind of council or party or MP can be helpful. I kind of did a bit of canvassing on the local elections, but also I went to the Oxford Pathways Day, and also to like a Women in Economics conference at Cambridge, and those are just really interesting because it was kind of going and seeing kind of academics actually like talking, or other students talking about it, and that was really cool. And also I guess because of coronavirus, like a lot of those might not be running in person, but actually like that's almost better because so many people will be able to attend, because I think a lot of them have like moved online. So I don't know, do a bit of Twitter searching, do some Googling, and see kind of Oxford Pathways unique other kind of women in economics or things like that, and see if anyone's doing talks and conferences and Zoom meetings.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of students are very worried about not being able to go to like summer schools and conferences and things because of coronavirus. But like you said, there's so many things you can do online. There's loads of online lectures, as Leah said, online courses you can do, like Future Learn, MOOCs and things like that. I'm really glad
there's also like podcasts and things. Like I know The Economist has a podcast, and I remember I listened to like In Our Time, I think that's like on Channel 4 or something. This is some sort of podcast, and they have like philosophy, like little like clips, and like they'll talk about Plato's Republic or like something like that. Like they just do different sections, and so you can just get a little intro into any topic you want in like 20 minutes, or you can just skip it. There's so many good podcasts actually. I'd recommend those like so much, because you don't even have to try. You can like just be like going for a walk and listen to a podcast.
I remember going into Leah's room last year and you had like Plato's Republic on your desk, and it was like, so if you don't want to sit there and read that.
It's great. You know what? It's actually not that big. I would recommend reading it. It's so much fun. I really liked it. But maybe it might be a bit boring actually.
Not for you, Leah.
Not for me, but maybe. Don't worry if you don't like it.
You're saying it with Plato's biggest fan.
I am.
Did you guys do any work experience before coming to uni? No.
Nothing like linked to PPE. I think because of the subjects, like it's so hard to find any work experience that really links, unless it's something like what Ellie said, like say you do drama and that like links, and like you see the inequality and like that sort of thing, and it links to something you're saying. I don't think there's much work experience that like directly links to PPE. I'd say societies at your school are probably better, and like you could always set up one if you don't have them at the moment, like a little with people you find that like interested in, I don't know, philosophy or something. You could just have a little weekly club. I don't know how hard it is, but
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And I'm glad you said that almost, because I think people do think there's a lot of pressure to try and get work experience before they come for their degree, and it's just not needed. Like I didn't have any for biochemistry. You guys haven't had any for PPE. I guess it's only needed for medicine and like more vocational courses.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that should take the pressure off some people. And then the dreaded first line of the personal statement. If you guys have got your personal statements up, do you want to read your first lines?
Mine is
Actually,
so embarrassing.
mine is so embarrassing. Oh, okay. Wait,
Who wants to go
I'll read mine.
first?
I once read mine out at a pre-drinks in college, and everyone like wet themselves laughing at me. So here you go. So mine is, at the age of 9, I set up a playground petition to stop my primary school from banning YouTube. Unsurprisingly, our campaign was unsuccessful.
Wow.
That's fine. No, that is fine. Wait, I'm trying to find my final version. But mine basically started with like questions I wanted to have answered doing a degree in PPE. So it was like, oh, here we go. Okay.
Do that. Don't do what I did.
Because it starts with questions, I'll read like more than the first line, but I am aware it's kind of embarrassing. Have we consented to a government? Do we have minds? Is it irrational to vote? These are questions that I hope to find the answer to through studying PPE. That's basically it.
I think both of them are a solid 10 out of 10. At least none of you went down the route of, I was fascinated by PPE from like 2 years old.
Yeah, I feel like they'll know if you're lying as well. Like no one even knows what philosophy is at like age 4. It's not been your lifelong dream to do PPE. I think just be honest. Yeah,
that's such good opinion. Like I feel like it's also, there are so many people that use like flowery language and all of this stuff, and it's like no, just be honest, be straight to the point, don't fuss about what it sounds like, just get the content in.
Yeah, I'd also say that's another thing. You don't need to use fancy words or anything like that. You just say what you want to say. Like you don't need to use a thesaurus for like the whole personal statement. Be like, I liked this book because, like, I think that's fine.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you girls both have very different opening lines to show that there's not one set formula.
No, anything.
And do you have any tips and advice for people who are writing a first line? Now you've been at Oxford 2 years. Ellie, you wrote your personal statement 3 years ago, so like you've had a lot of time to think on it. So what would you say to people who are thinking of writing theirs? Actually, advice in general, I think, actually, not just first line, but advice in general.
I guess my advice for first line would be write 10 different versions and go with the least awful one, because the first line's so stressful to write. It's really hard. You're always going to feel like, oh, I just can't wait till they get through that to the rest of it. And like just keep writing loads of different ones, and eventually one of them will be okay. And then
I'd recommend sorry.
No, go.
No, I was just going to say, like, even leave the first line to the end, like write the rest of your personal statement, then go back to it, because I feel like writing the personal statement helps you to actually realize yourself, like, why you actually want to study that subject. And like the first line, essentially, I think you want to say, why do you want to study that subject, or like what led to your like interest in the subject. And it sometimes it's hard to like work out exactly why that is, so I'd leave that to the end.
Definitely. And then to finish off, we haven't got a lot of time, so to finish off in like as little words as you can, like you would in a personal statement, what has been your favorite thing about studying PPE for the last 2 years?
I know we've said this so many times, but it probably is just how broad it is. I think I've been able, like, the number of options you have, especially in second and third year, of what you want to study. I think anything, even if you're going to PPE because you're only interested in like 5 main topics, and that's covered by PPE, you'll be able to answer them. Like they have modules from like ancient philosophy to the beginning of philosophy. They have politics and whatever, like Africa, like what else do they put in America, like all of them. So I feel like just the pure range of it means you're going to find something you enjoy, and you can find things that are so different. Like you can do microeconomics, but then you can also do like I don't know, sort of moral philosophy, like ethics, which is, you know, you can just whatever interests you. And like I never get bored because every term like I'm doing just something completely different.
Yeah, that's really, really nice, because biochemistry doesn't have much choice, so it must be really nice to have a choice and guide like your degree where you want it to go. What about you, Ellie?
I really agree with Leah. Like, I think also the variety that you can have in a week, because there's so much variety in terms of the options. Like, I really like the fact that I'm not just churning out essays every single week. Like, I might have an essay and a problem sheet, which are like, I find really nice to kind of not just be thinking in terms of words, but be like, oh, okay, I'll have a break and do some maths. Like, that's really nice.
Yeah, because I guess you have that A level and well, maybe A level, but definitely GCSE. It's nice to like have different things to concentrate on, so you're not just like brain dead with one thing. Yeah, so that's really, really good to hear. So yeah, that's all we have time for. It's been so nice to talk to you, and everything you've said has been so, so useful. Also, don't forget to follow Oxford from the Inside on Instagram at Oxford from the Inside. We're also on Facebook, Oxford from the Inside, and YouTube and Spotify. So you can find us pretty much anywhere. And yeah, I hope you all stay happy and healthy and safe. And check out the rest of our podcasts, because we're doing a whole series on personal statements for different subjects. So yeah, thank you so much for being here today, girls. And yeah, see you soon.
Bye.